for me, that was the first time. I didn't see that video, so he did a good job. Yeah. He did a good job. And I want to thank Nathan, for that weekend and everything that all together we are doing, but also Nathan did his best to put back our party on track. And that was this weekend with that revision conference. I had the opportunity to speak with a lot of you, and I understand that it was a great success. So thank you, Nathan. And I want to thank also the team at Edge Office who helped us to do that conference. But in particular, one person new on our staff, a couple of months ago, she was not with us, and we asked her to help us for that conference. She said, yes, I can help. And she did help. She was in charge of that conference, and she, I believe, called you and asking you, are you ready? Do you have everything to come to Ottawa? That's our events coordinator, Evie Lacroix. Evie. So, are you happy to be here, the PPC family? That was such an interesting and productive conference for myself and for all of you. A big success, but I want to thank our presentators and also our keynote speakers, David, Billboard Chris, and there's somebody. Eric. So because of them, that was a big success. And also we learned a lot. I believe that now we have great arguments to be ready to be out there and fight for what we believe. Because as you know, the PPC has the best policies, the best ideas, and more Canadians need to know about them. And un gros merci à vous tous. Thank you very much, everybody. And also all of you who are online right now, listening to us. I understand that that was a big success also. You're not with us in the room, but you are with us. You are sharing the same ideas and the same principles. So be ready, because we're going to be ready for the next election. Yes. We're going to be ready to share our vision of a free and prosperous country. Ready to fight the lies and the wrong ideas, the wrong policies promoted by establishment politicians. You know, we are more than a political party. We are a movement made up of hard-working patriots like you who love their country. And today, I want to talk to you about the truth. Yes, the truth. The truth that nobody else in the morally and intellectually corrupt establishment parties wants to talk about. The truth regarding a series of crucial issues for the future of our country. Je veux vous parler aujourd'hui de la vérité. Oui, la vérité dont personne d'autre ne veut parler dans les partis corrompus de l'establishment. La vérité sur une série de sujets qui sont d'une importance cruciale pour l'avenir de notre pays. In politics, if you want to help people, you tell them the truth based on facts and science. And if you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. You appeal to their emotion. I can tell you, our country is governed by selfish establishment politicians, liberals and fake conservatives who tell Canadians what they want to hear based on today's polls and focus groups, not on what is in Canada's long-term best interest. And all they care about is power. They believe and promote wrong ideas, wrong public policies on some crucial topics for the future of our country. They promote wrong policies like mass immigration and radical multiculturalism that are undermining our economy, culture, and society. Wokeism that is destroying Western civilization. Radical gender ideology that is eroding our youth mental health. And climate alarmism that is sabotaging our prosperity and freedoms. And I must add also the war in Ukraine that is threatening world peace and our own security. All these wrong ideas are sadly widely accepted today by a portion of the population. The People's Party is there to fight these wrong ideas and promote the good ones by telling the truth to our fellow citizens. We know that even though an idea is not widely accepted, it doesn't mean it is just and true. And an idea does not become just and true because it's popular. Our ideas are just and true and will become popular if we defend them openly with passion and conviction. By doing that, we will gradually move the Overton window and change the climate of opinion. And by the way, that is the only climate change I care about. Nous savons tous que même si une idée n'est pas largement acceptée, ça ne signifie pas qu'elle n'est pas juste et vraie. Et une idée ne devient pas juste et vraie parce qu'elle est populaire. Nos idées sont justes et vraies et deviendront populaires si nous les défendons ouvertement, avec passion et conviction. When I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail for a non-crime after a political gathering in a park, fighting for our freedoms, the policeman asked me if I had something on me that could hurt him. I said no, only my words, only my philosophy, only my beliefs. And if we want to win the battle of ideas, we must use our words as our weapon. We must speak out and tell the truth. So, what is the truth about mass immigration? First, let's talk numbers. The Liberal government has doubled the number of new permanent residents accepted every year from an average of 250,000 during the 250,000 a year during the last decades to a planned 500,000 next year. We must add to that 700,000 people who represent the number of temporary foreign workers, international students, and asylum seekers, fake or real. So last year, Canada opened its door to 1.2 million newcomers. That represents the entire population of Saskatchewan. Canada is the fastest growing country in the Western world, and already 23% of our population was born outside of Canada. The growth of our population is entirely due to immigration. I will repeat it. The growth of our population is entirely due to immigration. Native-born Canadians are being replaced by immigrants. This is not a far-right conspiracy theory. It's a fact. It's a mathematical reality. La croissance de notre population est entièrement due à l'immigration. Et les Canadiens de souche sont remplacés par des immigrants. Il ne s'agit pas d'une théorie du complot d'extrême droite, c'est un fait, c'est une réalité mathématique. Also, mass immigration is pushing up housing prices and making the housing market unaffordable. For 1.2 million newcomers in 2023, we built about 240,000 new homes. We would need to triple the number of new homes we build each year just to meet the demand, which everybody knows is not possible. The only real and immediate solution to the housing crisis is to end mass immigration. It's simply math. There is no getting around it. But both liberals and fake conservatives would rather not talk about it. A single-family houses with a nice backyard where you can raise your children have become totally out of reach, in large part due to mass immigration. By pushing up housing prices, mass immigration discourages young couples to have children. And the collapsing birth rate is then used as justification for even more mass immigration. This insane, vicious cycle of self-destruction must stop, and it will start with us. Mass immigration is destroying our economy and reducing our standard of living. It keeps wages down and favors big businesses who love the cheap labor rather than invest in productivity-enhancing technologies or simply increase salaries. That slows down our productivity and keeps everyone poor. We know that under the disastrous Trudeau government, Canadians standard of living has stagnated. For a full decade, any economic growth we've had in that period has been cancelled by massive population growth. So it's simple. If the economic pie is getting bigger, but not as fast as the growth of the population, we each have a smaller slice. We each get poorer. And that's the sad reality that is happening in Canada right now. Sous la gouverne désastreuse du gouvernement Trudeau, le niveau de vie des Canadiens stagne depuis maintenant une décennie. Toute croissance économique enregistrée au cours de cette période a été annulée par une croissance démographique massive. Nous nous appauvrissons. Mass immigration and radical multiculturalism are undermining our social cohesion and tradition of peaceful coexistence. It's rapidly changing the cultural character and social fabric of our country. In the past, immigrants who came here gradually integrated into our society. They kept some aspects of the culture of their country of origin, of course. They became Canadian, but with a distinct flavor. But this is very different than coming here to recreate the society and culture you left behind and living permanently in a ghetto apart from the larger Canadian society. And moreover, being officially encouraged by the government to continue to do so rather than to integrate into Canadian society and adopt Canadian culture and values. Of course, our country, Canada, is and has always been a diverse country. We have First Nation, Inuit, 2 official languages, a multi-ethnic population, very different regional cultures. The culture of Cape Breton is very different from that of Quebec or that of Alberta or Newfoundland. All these regional cultures are intrinsically Canadian. They develop here in Canada. They don't exist anywhere in the world, only here. They deserve to be nurtured and to survive. One reply I often get on social media is that we are all immigrants. And there is no specifically Canadian about any culture, apart from that of First Nation. Actually, last week, an Indian immigrant replied to me on Twitter after I criticized mass immigration. He wrote, Maxime, are you not an immigrant or the son of immigrant parents? Well, no, I'm not. And you know what? That is a big problem. One of the problems with mass immigration is that now millions of residents have no clue how this country developed and no respect for our history. They think that everybody arrived here a few years ago like them. My French ancestors actually settled in New France 3 or 4 centuries ago. They created They created a distinct society and an original culture that only exists on this continent. Like the other historical cultures that developed here in Canada over centuries. And I can tell you, the world will be poorer and less interesting if these cultures gradually disappear over the next 2 to 3 generations, because we are quickly being replaced by people and cultures from other countries. You know that a nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in common national projects, sharing the same values, being different from the rest of the world. It's only when these sentiments are widely shared that we can develop a trust of common understanding necessary for institutions to survive and to function. And you may remember that our country was almost torn apart because of misunderstandings between Francophone Quebecers and the rest of Canada. So why would you want to emphasize cultural, ethnic, and religious differences, which have been one of the main causes of conflict throughout human history? This is insane. The multiculturalist ideology has failed in Europe and here in Canada. Canada is becoming a fragmented, balkanized society where ethnic tribes live side by side. The sense of community is evaporating. Tribal conflicts are being imported. Violence in the streets is becoming common in our big cities. It's also turning us in a low-trust society, when it's obvious that only a high level of trust between people interacting with each other guarantees a peaceful society with low crime, high mobility, and well-functioning institutions. How can you have high trust when you are surrounded by people from complex cultures whose codes and behavior you cannot predict or don't understand? By people who have ways to conduct business that are common in corrupt third world countries, but are clearly unethical here in Canada. By people who may not treat you with respect because you are a woman or you are gay or lesbian. Although we have always been a diverse country, Canadian culture has a common set of rules, principles, values, and expectations, and I must add, behaviors, that most people consider appropriate and normal. You know, you know, basic stuff like where is it appropriate to poop? We must recognize now that all social customs are not equal. All cultures are not equal. The PPC is the only party that proposes to radically change Canada's disastrous immigration policy. How can we do that? By instituting a complete moratorium on immigration. Yes, a moratorium for as long as it takes on the number of permanent residents we accept, until the housing market and other problems caused by mass immigration are back to normal or under control. And we must also substantially lower the number of foreign workers, international students, and refugees in Canada in order to preserve our way of life. Le Parti populaire va imposer un moratoire complet sur le nombre de résidents permanents que nous acceptons, jusqu'à ce que le marché du logement et les autres problèmes causés par l'immigration de masse reviennent à la normale et soient sous contrôle. Et nous allons aussi réduire considérablement le nombre de travailleurs étrangers, d'étudiants internationaux et de réfugiés au Canada, afin de préserver notre mode de vie. There are claims that anywhere between 20,000 and 500,000 illegals live in Canada. People who stayed here after their asylum claims were rejected or after their visas as international students or temporary foreign workers expired. The Liberal government is now planning to grant them permanent residency. This will encourage more millions to come to Canada by whatever means, including large-scale immigration scams that are bringing thousands of Indians to this country every year. But you know what? All illegals should be deported. Because Canadian citizenship is a privilege, not something we give you as a reward for not respecting our laws or cheating. Nous allons aussi expulser tous les clandestins, parce que la citoyenneté canadienne est un privilège et pas quelque chose que nous donnons comme une récompense pour ne pas avoir respecté nos lois ou avoir triché. We should also repeal the Multiculturalism Act and eliminate all funding to promote multiculturalism. Emphasize the integration of immigrants into our Canadian society. This is the true must tell Canadians about mass immigration and radical multiculturalism, which are the biggest threat to the survival of our society and culture. So now, what is the truth about wokeism? The truth about wokeism is that it is a destructive, toxic, far-left ideology that reduces all social and economic issues to race, sex, and gender. The woke want us to be judged not by the content of our character, not by our personality as individuals, but by the color of our skin. And it is cultural Marxism. It's a worldview that divides people into two classes, the oppressors and the oppressed. White, heterosexual men are the oppressor, and non-whites, women, religious, and sexual minorities are the oppressed. Calling a white man an oppressor and excluding him from a job simply because of the color of his skin is racist. Yes, it is racist. There's no other way to put it. And teaching a young white girl to be ashamed of her skin color is also racist. This discrimination is immoral, it is always wrong, and it is the opposite of the Western civilization values that everybody is equal under the law. The People's Party is the only party that will put an end to this nonsense by abolishing all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and prohibiting official discrimination based on these irrelevant characteristics. We will do better. We will promote unity over diversity, equality of rights over equity, and meritocracy over inclusion. This is le Parti populaire est le seul parti qui abolira les programmes et politiques du gouvernement fédéral en matière de diversité, équité et inclusion et interdira effectivement la discrimination officielle basée sur ces caractéristiques non pertinentes. Et nous allons promouvoir l'unité plutôt que la diversité, l'égalité des droits plutôt que l'équité, et bien sûr la méritocratie plutôt que l'inclusion. And what is the truth about radical gender ideology? I believe that you know it after my friend Billboard Chris, but our people maybe online didn't have the opportunity to hear Chris. The reality is that is contradicts biological realities, and it will damage an entire generation of young Canadians. And trans activists and their woke supporters are actively indoctrinating and confusing children. In some Canadian schools today, boys and girls are being taught that they may actually not really be boys and girls. And when they get confused about their gender identity, about their sex, instead of helping them to accept their body and sex, they are being encouraged by a growing industry of psychologists and surgeons to start transitioning. There's no such thing as transitioning. And what is sad about that is they are pushing them, our kids, towards an unhealthy lifestyle, a lifestyle filled with harmful hormone treatments and invasive surgeries. This is not a lifestyle that should be normalized and encouraged. But sadly, that is the case in our country right now. What we must do, we must protect our children from this insidious and ideology that encourages and exploits gender confusion. There is no such thing as transitioning, and as my friend Billboard Chris said today, and he keeps saying, children are never born in a wrong body, and a boy is a boy, and a girl is a girl. There's only two sexes, male and female. That's the reality. Meanwhile, the others political parties, including the fake conservatives, voted to criminalize parents and therapists who want children to accept their body rather than mutilating it. They should all be ashamed. The PPC will do the opposite. The PPC is the only body that will instead criminalize those who encourage child selection. And we will protect women threatened by men masquerading as women in sport, changing rooms, and prison. This is the truth we must tell Canadians about the radical gender ideology. And what about the truth about climate change? Oh my God. It is not based on science, as you know. Science shows us that fears of climate apocalypse are unfounded. Climate change is real. It is an undisputed fact that the climate has always changed and will continue to change. But we know that it is not the end of the world because, until 12,000 years ago, much of Canada was under ice. Thanks to climate change, we now can live here. Climate change alarmism is based on inaccurate models that have consistently failed at correctly predicting the future. None of the apocalyptic predictions that have been made about the climate since the 1970s have come true. The truth is that CO2 is not a pollutant. It is an essential gas for life, and it is food for plants. So, we need to tell these truths to our fellow Canadians. There are no reason to reduce CO2 emissions and to shut down fossil fuel energy production while the world needs more of it. The PPC is the only body that pledges to withdraw from the Paris Accord. That means no carbon tax, no harmful regulations to reduce CO2 emissions, and no subsidies to the green industry. This is the truth we must convey about climate change. Le Parti populaire est le seul parti qui s'engage à se retirer de l'accord de Paris et ça veut dire très clairement pas de taxe de carbone, pas de réglementation néfaste et inefficace pour réduire les émissions de CO2 et pas de subvention à l'industrie verte. And what is the truth about the war in Ukraine? The truth about the war in Ukraine is that Canada has no business getting involved in this war. The West and NATO have horribly managed their relations with Russia since the end of the Cold War. Vladimir Putin has a point when he says he cannot accept hostile troops and missiles in Ukraine, just like the US did not accept any missiles and troops in Cuba in 1962. We could have avoided this war if we had given Russia assurances that Ukraine would not be part of NATO. It would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives and prevented massive population displacement. Instead of pushing Ukraine to confront Putin, Canada and other Western countries should have supported this solution in the first place. And the economic sanctions on Russia had no effect whatsoever. All they did was to destabilize the global financial and monetary market. We have pushed the Russians in the arms of the Chinese and encouraged dozens of emerging countries to get together with them in the BRICS to stop depending on Western trade and finance. These counterproductive actions reinforce anti-American and anti-West sentiment in emerging countries and confirm the rapid decline of Western influence in the world. And now, the BRICS countries are preparing a major financial offensive against the West. They are planning to launch a new international reserve currency, possibly backed by gold, to compete the dollar. This is a geopolitical blunder on the Western part that will have huge economic and military consequences because our overly indebted and uncompetitive economies are not ready for it. Western leaders will eventually be forced to accept a settlement that will be even more favorable to Russia. The liberals and fake conservatives, like the rest of the globalist Western elites, all support getting more involved in this pointless war. And Pierre Poilievre wants to send even more weapons and money to Ukraine than Trudeau. This is completely reckless and irresponsible. That is the truth we must tell Canadians about the war in Ukraine. The PPC, again, is the only federal party that supports peace and a Canada First foreign policy. The Liberal and the NDP coalition have been destroying Canada with these disastrous policies. But Pierre Poilievre will likely be the next Prime Minister, is going to disappoint a lot of people. The fake conservatives are afraid to tell the truth. They lied to us on all these issues. They won't stop mass immigration and deport illegals. They won't question radical multiculturalism and they won't defend Canadian identity. They won't fight radical gender ideology and anti-white racism. They won't take Canada out of the Paris Accord. They won't stop sending money and weapons to Zelensky. I'm not exaggerating when I accuse the fake conservative and the liberals of putting our country, Canada, on a road to destruction. If we allow these establishment politicians to continue to forcibly change the cultural character and social fabric of our country with mass immigration, extreme multiculturalism, and wokeism, Canada will eventually cease to exist as a distinct nation. What can we do? What can we do to reverse this trend if we want to make sure we and our children still have a country that is like Canada we know 25 years from now? A country with its unique identity intact, a country that is free and prosperous. The only way to do it is to fight the lies and tell the truth to Canadians. In times like these, we have a duty to not hide your conviction or anything that you believe is necessary and true. You have a duty to tell what you believe to be just and true to the people around you. Because you are the defenders of our civilization, and you should not be afraid to affirm it. point of having the best ideas, the best solutions for a better society if we keep them to ourselves because we are too afraid to displease others. You have indestructible weapons: your words, your ideas, the truth. You must have the courage to speak your mind. It is the only way to counter all the lies and the nonsense. And I can tell you, it's never too late to fight for what is right. It is fundamentally not only to have a better country, but more importantly, to keep your dignity. Because the person who tells the truth politely, gently, persistently is strong and free. And the more you tell the truth, the stronger you are. And it is contagious. This is what I want you to do, to stay true to your convictions. And if you do that, we will win the battle of ideas and live in a better society. Thank you. Stay strong.
PPC! 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 PPC!
That's only the beginning, guys. We have a lot of work to do. I count on you. Oui, je compte sur toi. Oh yeah. You're ready to fight? We'll have fun. We'll do that together. Oh, here, sharing our values and fighting for life.
Are you taking off? Yeah.